Welcome to this demonstration video where we're going to show you a method that we have published as a code pattern and that you can use for finding topics in collections of documents. Imagine that we are data engineers at a clinic and we receive dictations from doctors that might sound something like this.
Is significant for lumbar stenosis with chronic low back pain. Past surgical history.
So we transcribe these dictations and we get them in text files like this. These are transcriptions done by humans, but in the future we might automate this using Watson or some other service. Now, we have a fairly large amount of transcriptions. In this case, about 250 of them. And now we want to analyze them and discover archetypal topics, themes that keep on recurring in these transcriptions and that we can use for describing them. Now, we begin by forming a corpus of these transcriptions, and that's what we see here. We have a large number of text files. So we run each transcription through Watson, extracting keywords, concepts, and entities. Now we have what we need to find the archetypal topics for our corpus. Here we have used quite a small corpus, only 250 dictations, but we still can get quite distinct and intuitively relevant topics because Watson has a large dictionary of medical entities which it runs the dictations against. We see here we have chosen 6 archetypal topics and we can see how they compare to each other here. We get them in a layout where we have first the first archetype and how it overlaps with the others, and the second and how it overlaps here to the third one, and so on. So we can see in the first one here it's hypertension, diabetes, tachycardia, and we can see diabetes is also occurring in the last one, right? So here dementia is the strongest in archetype 1. In archetype 2 we have cyanosis, cough, edema. These belong together. In archetype 3 it's about the heart. In archetype 4 it's more about the cold and the lungs, and archetype 5 is more about stomach and stomach diseases. But keep in mind that we are using Watson's dictionary of medical entities. If we want to go beyond those, include more ideas in our archetypes, we can instead choose to archetype the concepts we get from Watson. This is much broader than the entities. We can see how we have done that here, and it still looks pretty good. Pretty much overlapping word, but we get some ideas here that were not in the medical entities. It looks pretty good in all of them, but note here in archetype 8 we have, for example, Battlestar Galactica comes in, which is an interesting anomaly, but the rest look pretty good. The archetyping method we use is NMF, non-negative matrix factorization, which is a type of soft clustering. It will give us archetypes that can be both intuitive and distinct, as shown in this example. Our archetyping method is useful for individual clinics, geographies, or demographics because it will find archetypes that are most relevant for each case. In the notebook version of our archetyping method, we go further, showing features that could be implemented also in the web app. The notebook is also more complicated to read, but there is everything you need to know in order to set up the method and go further. You will see here we have the same archetypes that we recognize from the web app, and we have them for the different cases. Now we come to analyzing new documents. So assume that we have set our corpus and archetypes, and now we want to analyze a new dictation, one that is not part of the corpus, like here. Now, we can map the new dictation onto our archetypal topics, which helps us describe it and categorize it. And we can show it in a plot, like here. We have the new dictation. We've made archetypes on concepts this time, and we can see that this dictation belongs mostly to the topics of archetype 0 and archetype 3 and archetype 5, and the others are not so present. We can compare each archetype with the new document. For example, here we have archetype 0, and it is high on asthma. We see that the new one has a bit of asthma in it. We can see our strange archetype with John Cavill. The new dictation has really nothing there. We can see that the new dictation has very little to do with kidney and blood and urinary bladder and so forth. But we can see that there is a significant overlap with the third archetype on myocardial infarction and hypertension. We can also see on the final one here where the fifth archetype, pretty good overlap there again, cardiology, hypertension, myocardial infarction. So we can see that this new dictation falls pretty much into the topics of the heart-related archetypes. We can see that this method can be used not only on medical dictations, but any kind of corpus of documents, preferably within some kind of domain. If it may be, for example, in economy or in, for example, discussing different types of educations or courses, anywhere where topics are relevant.